it. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below. All engagement helps us grow the pod, so we greatly appreciate it. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other audio-only platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. All of that stuff helps us on those platforms as well. Let's move on to the United part then. I don't think it's going to take half an hour like the Arsenal part. Let's be real. We had 2 games, the same scoreline, one a victory and one a loss. Performance, you could say 2 similar performances, because United beat Southampton on Thursday 3-1. It took an Amad Diallo 12-minute hat-trick to save us, because we were about to lose to arguably the worst Premier League team in history. You know, bringing that Amorim quote back in quickly.
There we go.
Exactly. And they were cooking us. And we were all talking about it in the group. Sulemana and Dibbling were even that Fernandes in midfield. There was only one Fernandes in that game. He went nuts. And yeah, we somehow S-housed it, and Amad Diallo did Amad Diallo things, right? It was a crazy hat trick. Like, I mean, the second goal was nuts. He's stretched and he gets enough power to beat Ramsdale. So big him up. But we absolutely nicked that. That was a smash and grab. We didn't really deserve it. And then the Brighton game on Sunday, 3-1. I actually think this was a bit tighter than a lot of people have kind of talked about on the analysis of the game. I don't think Brighton absolutely battered us. I think it was a combination of really poor defence and a couple of really shocking defensive errors, obviously from Onana, who I'm going to get in, a bit of a rant in a minute, and also just. And Amorim made this kind of analysis after the game. It got lost because he made the big quotable, but the players were not following his orders. It was obvious. The positioning was nuts. Like Mazraoui was way high at certain points, and then really deep at certain points, and it was like this doesn't ring true to what Amorim wants from his wing backs. And I feel like he didn't have his greatest game. He's kind of been on a downward curve as well. I'm not going to go in on him because he was really, really good for the first third of the season, and he's had a little dip recently, and it's kind of cost us in some games. But it wasn't the greatest performance, and you can see that there are certain areas in our team where players are just not getting it. They're just not getting it. And we've got Amorim's had 11 Premier League games now, right? Or I think it was 10 or 11, whatever it is. He's had 15 or 16 games in total. When you do the analysis on his time in general, it's not absolutely catastrophic because most of our losses have come in the league. All the other competitions he's kind of been in, most of them he's grabbed wins or, he's had positive results. So it's kind of slanted to the poor performances coming in the league. But overall, he's at just below 50%, which is not disastrous for an initial period of a manager. But what's very, very clear is some players don't know how to do this, or they've got a long way to go. And it's going to take a lot of faith from the manager, his coaching staff, our board, who are trigger happy as well, which we'll get to in the transfer window, and the fans, more importantly, to stick by some of them, right? And you saw how big they went on Xerxes early on, which they've kind of taken the adverse approach to him now and they're showing him a lot of love. But there are definitely a lot of players that are going to be casualties to this system. And also, I don't think it is purely a system thing, because I'm going to hand it over to you because I want to get your opinion, because I feel like the United topic's probably got more to chat about. It's not only the system, it's what's being asked of them, which is high intensity, lots of sprints, a lot of tracking back, a lot of energy, intensity and effort, which I don't think these players necessarily all have as a prerequisite. I'll be real. There are some players in there that you can see when they have enough time to train and they're not playing a game every 2 days or whatever, like Ugarte, for example, who's looked a little bit leggy recently. There was a period where he was able to carry out the task to a T. Now, he's obviously had a bit of a leg up because he's played for Amorim before, so he knows exactly what's asked of him. But even other players like Kobe, who I doubted, for example, in that midfield pivot, in the Liverpool and Arsenal game, he was good. When he had enough time to, actually train and focus on what the tactics were, he was able to carry it out. So I feel a bit better about him. But then you've got other players, Dallo, again, monumental stinker, and he should have been hooked against Brighton, playing a couple guys on side for at least one of the goals. He's not improving, right? I don't like him at left back or left wing back. He's, whatever signing we get in needs to come quick, because, I can't stand that guy. And I'll write him off as a United player completely if he's not moved out of that position. I'm giving him I'm holding on to the blie that he's not a left back or left wing back to give him a little bit more wiggle room to put him back right back. And if he's just a right back, then I've had enough, because he's been terrible all season. But, other players, Bruno wasn't good in either of these games. Højlund has been absolutely god-awful in every game he's played for the last 6 weeks or whatever, right? He's been really poor. When we do move that midfield around, we don't have options. He's not playing Casemiro. He's obviously done. He brings on Eriksen against Southampton, which does actually change the game. He does that nice little dink over for Ahmed's second goal. But he doesn't offer legs, so he's not a long-term solution. We're having to throw Collier in. So, man, there's going to be a lot of change in the on-field personnel in the next 6-7 months. I can guarantee it. I don't know if all the fans are going to be happy with some of the transactions. We'll talk about that when we do the little transfer segment in a bit. But yeah, these results are going to keep coming. We're going to be able to get wins. We're going to get disappointing losses in the league. That's what it's going to be like, and it's going to be in these fixtures. So I agreed what Amorim said before after the Liverpool and Arsenal games. Those are not the games for us to judge. The games for us to judge are the Southamptons at home, the Brightons at home, the Fulham on the weekend, the Wolves at home. Those kind of fixtures where we need to do something. We don't have that extra bit of motivation. Or we don't have, that David and Goliath spirit that naturally comes when you go away to Anfield or away to Emirates or away to Etihad. Like, we got to win. We got to show the fans something. And at this point, a lot of players aren't. First of all, what did you make of the results, and do you think they were and the performances, I guess, and do you think they were fair? Before I go in on Onana, because we've got to have an Onana moment.
Yeah, no, I think the win against Southampton, I think they were cooking you, but at the end of the day, like, if you've got a player that can score a hat-trick in 10 minutes,
we had chances too. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't a complete battering. It was just a surprise, I think, from the perspective of Sulemana cooking man up and Diblin. They just not overperformed, but they just gave you a bit of a shock, right, as to how good they could be. But I think it was a relatively even game until Ahmad just kind of closed the book and said, "Yeah, we're done here. I'm not gonna keep giving you a lot of life. I'm just gonna put you away now." So I think that one, a lot of people are overdoing it a bit and saying, you deserve to lose that game, and Ahmad saved you and whatever else. I think Ahmad did save you from probably what could have been a draw or a loss. That's true, but he didn't necessarily deserve to lose off of the performance, right, or off of the balance of your performance versus theirs. I think the Brighton game, I do think it was a lot closer than the scoreline probably shows it, right? Again, it's one of those games where you had more possession, you had more of the ball, and yet you did almost nothing with it. And when you did do something with it, you didn't put it away, right? Is the stat that you had one shot on target the whole game, and it was the Bruno penalty, right? That stinks.
That game was right, yeah.
How can you have more of the ball against a team that, let's be honest, are not great defensively, right? They've got Lewis Duncan who everyone's realised is real shocking, stinky, and he will let up a lot of chances, right? How can you be playing against that and yet still not be able to create that many chances or get a couple of shots on goal? And Baleba was doing his absolute best, Bozo impression of bloody Basuma or whatever, and man was doing craziness. So from my point of view, that's poor from you guys. From the fact of letting 3 goals in, I think a lot of them were shock ones. I'm not going to say that. I don't think they happen frequently, right? Onana has a stinker and is at fault for really a couple of them, right? That doesn't happen every week. Or yeah, all of them, you could say. But that doesn't happen every week. So I'm not going to be that's a systemic problem. You guys,
I don't know. It happens often.
No, it happens often. I mean, because he's a poor keeper. But I mean, that's an individual error. In my opinion, it's not necessarily system error. So
no, it's not.
Your individual players made that result look worse because of what they were doing. And the last comment I'm going to make is you cannot play people that are not that are not absolute legs, engines in your wing back positions. I like Mazraoui. He's good. He's definitely from if you compare him to like Casemiro and Eriksen and some of the people that he was surrounding previously, he definitely looks like he's got more legs than them. But he still does not have enough legs to do the job that you need him to do, right? Dalot, same thing. He's got the technique, but he's not necessarily got the legs to do those roles. You need absolute engines in that left and right back, that left wing back and right wing back position. And that's why I think Ahmad did quite well when he was there, because Ahmad has probably got the most, him and Ugarte probably got the biggest engines out of anyone in your team, right? Mm-hmm. So, honestly, I think this system will never work when you've got two players at left wing back and right wing back that do not have engines. You're starting to like fix that problem in the middle with Ugarte, right? He's really pulling the weight of having an engine, but as you said, he's going to get leggy if he's played frequently. So you need more. I don't know whether it's young players or if it's just players that just in general have a better fitness condition. You need more of those players to be able to play this system. Even if they are technically worse, they would make you look better than you are now. Because honestly, the demands of this system are high, right? It's a very full-on system. It's not. I'm not going to call it like heavy metal football type of thing, but it's a running style, and you do not have running players right now.
No.
So I would argue.
I would argue we haven't had running players for a very long time. Like you know how you look at some teams and you say, they play really modern football. They've got like modern players. We haven't recruited modern players in this whole era, I would say. We've recruited good players actually, and we've kind of ruined a lot of them, which a lot of United fans say we're the graveyard for a lot of good players, right? Rival fans say that, but we haven't recruited modern players to fit a style when we've got more modern managers, right? So I'll give you examples. As much as we rinsed Ten Hag, his Ajax team were intense. They used to press high. They were flary. They had ability on the ball, but he required on quite intense football. And obviously the bar's lower in Holland, and that's where we saw the disparity, right? Because he went and brought a bunch of players from his Ajax team, and they don't have the athletic ability to do the same job in the Premier League, because your Brightons, your Southamptons have physical, athletic players who are able to run up and down and close you down and super intense. Whereas, no offense to the Netherlands, but in the Eredivisie, I'm guessing, Sparta Rotterdam and some rubbish teams or lower position teams don't have that ability to get those kind of players. So they're able to play their football without being challenged physically. And now when you look at Amorim, I feel like I'm on system defense all the time, because I feel like people go for the system because it's the obvious change, really, that people can point to. But it's the intensity. If we did a 4-3-3, I almost said 4-4-3 like Todd Bowley, but if we did a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 or whatever formations we've previously had, we still got rinsed, right? We still got rinsed. Do you remember all the other times that we played against Wolves or Fulham or whatever at home and we got rinsed constantly? It's not about the formation. It's about the players not having the intensity and having the physical ability to carry out top Premier League football when you're playing against teams that are all super physical and all super intense. You need to get more intense, physical, stronger units in the team. Another thing I noticed when I was watching both of these games was our team's pretty small, bro. If you take Maguire and you take De Ligt out, everyone's short as shit. We don't have any kind of physical strength. And if you look at all the top teams now, Pep started this again. We can blame Pep for everything. He went and got absolute units in defence. Then you guys went and got absolute units in defence. Everyone's above 6'2", 6'3", or whatever. Now Liverpool, even most of their defence, if you take Trent and Robertson out, their midfield even and their centre-backs are all giants, right? And some of their attackers are even giants and pretty tall. And we don't have that. So we need to get that. And that's why some of the players we're being linked with, I'm encouraged, because I'm not even only looking at the aesthetic and all the bollocks that the Twitter tacticos love about football. I'm also looking at what are the physical demands of the Premier League. And we need to get more players that are able to cope with it. And if we don't, we're always going to have this problem. We're going to have a couple games where the genius of one of our flary ballers pulls us out. But we'll get other games where we're dominated. And I would argue against Brighton, I don't even think we were dominated. I think we caused our own downfall. Because if you look at all the goals, it's a defensive line or the goalie coming up, really, right? The first goal, why that line is that high and Mazraoui's, suddenly so deep and doing whatever, that allows that whole move to exist in the first place, and it's totally avoidable if he knows what he's doing. The second two, both on Onana, and now we're going to go on Onana, Ran. He needs to go, man. We can't have a goalie. No, I swear to God. Time to go, yeah. Big up, Claude. There's no goalie who I've ever seen in such a short space of time have so many errors leading to goals. And I'm not going to dig up that stat that I've seen bounding around because some people have said it's a BS stat, right? And it is a bit misleading because if you it says De Gea in 12 years, 17 errors leading to goals. Onana in a year and a half, or they've maybe rounded up to 2 years, has led to 10, right? Or whatever the difference is. De Gea, if you look at his 17 errors, you could probably isolate them.
Came in the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Exactly. Right? You could isolate them all into the last 3 seasons, maybe 4 seasons max if you stretched it. Onana has been at the same level of catastrophic as De Gea, and we got rid of him. Now, I know there was partly some motivation around the finances on De Gea because we gave him that mammoth contract where he matched Alexis Sanchez's deal, which is like 300k or whatever, which for a goalie is absolutely berserk, right? No one gives goalies that much money, even though I'm part of the goalie union as well with Ben Foster and them, man. 300 grand is nuts. De Gea was our best player for many seasons, right? But still, 300k is nuts, absolute nuts. So I know that was part of the motivation to get rid of him. But it was also because he was throwing the ball in the back of the net, right?
Kicking it off the post into his own goal.
We started this pod with me losing my shit about him at West Ham and stuff like that in the early days of this podcast. And it was fair. He was disastrous at the end, right? It was a shame because if you minus off the first 18 months where he was pretty poor as well, that middle block of 7 or 8 years, he was in the conversations of best goalie in the world, right? He was. I know we hadn't fully shifted to the super keepers type stuff, but he was still there. His shot stopping was elite. It was top tier. He was in the top 2 or 3 goalies in the Premier League for sure, and top 5 goalies in world football. But the drop off was mad. The difference with Onana is we haven't had any of that world classness. We've just had and the thing that people talk about and they try and defend him so hard because he had a run of 4 or 5 games at the back end of last season and a run of maybe 8 or 9 games at the beginning of this season where he was solid. I'm not having more than solid, right? When people come up and say he was top whatever, no. I saw some absolute BS by content creators putting him in top 3 of the Premier League goalies so far and all this. Rubbish, man. Absolutely rubbish. People are protecting him and trying to make out he's better than he is because people went too big on him early on for some of his bad mistakes. But now the mistakes are back again. And he's costing us points again. And I've never seen a single player cost us our hopes in a competition like him in the Champions League last season. And it's not like it's a one game and you're done, right? It's easy to do it in the FA Cup or Carabao when you've got one match and you lose. He did it in a group stage, 6 matches, and he cost us. That is despicable. And if his form comes back and continues like that in the league, honestly, I swear to God, I will look at Amorim for keeping him in the team if that's what he does. Because I know we've got big problems in other areas and stuff like that. But Onana will always cost us. We talked about the goalie fundamentals and stuff like that. What is he even doing for that Rutter goal? What is he even doing? That's a normal claim. We don't even have excuses and do big up AFTV tie and all that and say the weather and whatever. It was normal. It was a normal day in Manny. There was no wetness on the pitch that skidded or any of this stuff that could save him. He literally
just slaps it. He slaps it right into my man.
Right into Rutter, and then he moves so slowly. You know how you see some goalies there's been some Raya saves this season where he does the first save well, and then he's up super quick, and he does the next save. Like Onana moved in slow motion after he f***ed it up. He literally was scrambling slowly, and De Ligt was quicker to recover. But even De Ligt can't make every single, goal line clearance like he's done in previous games. He's not bloody, he's not our Lord and Savior. He's not going to be able to do that. So, yeah, man, I've had enough of Onana. I'm not going to get into agendas or do anything else. It's purely on a quality thing. And he has had moments when he's been good. He's made some really good saves, but the shit outweighs the good. And when that happens, you've got to flog a player. There's no time for development with him. He's late 20s. He's not going to change. He said it in interviews. I'm not changing. This is how I am. Get rid. I don't care. Take an L on the cost. Flog him back to Italy or somewhere else for 10 million or 15, 20 million or whatever. Just get whatever you can back and get a goalie who can do all the simple things well. And I would take that over someone who can make some flashy saves at certain moments but can't come out to claim a cross. You even look at the second one. He should come and get that ball.
Yeah.
That's not a ball being drilled across.
Yeah.
He's floated it, right? Minte was good in that game, but he floated that to the back post. I feel bad for Mazraoui. He smashed himself up, right? There's not much he can do.
On the post.
Yeah, there's not much he can do, right? I can look at him and say he should win that duel against Matoma, but he's on the back foot, backpedaling, and he doesn't know where Matoma is completely, right? He's got hold of him a bit, but he can't stop Matoma's limbs coming out of nowhere. Onana should come and claim that, man. That's one thing, and I feel like I'm giving Raya too much credit, but I'm just pointing out things because I don't think Raya is like the best goalie in the league either, but he's been performing at that level near the top, right? Top 3.
Yeah.
He comes and claims crosses, man. How hard is that? As a goalie, 101 is come and claim a cross when you can. Or if you don't claim it, punch that shit and get it a mile away. He doesn't do either. He just leaves it. He stays on his line. And then we concede the goal. So
when he does come out, he slaps it straight, it like softly slaps it into the path of someone to score.
Yeah, or he misses it a la Wolves and just like clotheslines the defender. So I just can't cope with the Onana gaffes. There's just too many of them. Like regardless of whether he's worse than De Gea, I don't give a shit. Like he's bad enough that he can't be our starting goalie. And there's going to be moments where other fans, when he has a good game, are going to say, "Take that, Onana haters," and whatever. He's still capable of having solid 7 out of 10s. I'm not saying he's a completely useless goalie, but he's not to the level of Man United. But
you also, I mean, from a goalkeeper position, from a goalkeeper position, if I have to choose between somebody who's up and down a lot and someone who's just like consistently decent, I'm going for consistently decent, right? Because yes, of course, we all love goalkeepers that make massive saves, right? And to keep us in games and that, right? But at the end of the day, that's individual performance type of stuff. Generally speaking, you want to rely on your system to not have to rely so much on individual performances to save you in the goalkeeping position, right? The problem that you've got is he is entirely an up and down goalkeeper. Like he is really good sometimes and really shit sometimes, right? But I don't think from my point of view, I want a goalkeeper that does that. I'd much rather have, I'm trying to think of a goalkeeper off the top of my head who's just kind of steady Eddie. I'm going to think of maybe like a Pickford, right? They're like a steady Eddie. In my opinion, Pickford is not like a 9 out of 10 ever. It's probably like a 7 out of 10 all the time, in my opinion, right? Yes, there's been times where he's kept like Everton. No. I mean, maybe. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like maybe a Sales.
Maybe like a Pope. A Pope.
Or like a Pope, right? Or Bernd Leno's another good example. He's consistently decent. Like he's never amazing. He's never shocking. He's just in the middle somewhere, right? These are the types of goalkeepers I think you need if you're rebuilding a team. I do not need a man that's going to come out and like make amazing saves one game and then slap it into the path of a striker the next game and basically cause me to lose. I just don't think that's what you need as a rebuilding team, right? Like if you look at the best goalkeepers in the world, more so than anything, they're just consistent, right? They just
look at your own team. Look at your own team. Look at your own team, right? Even look at your own back garden, right? You had Ramsdale. I'm not saying these are the same, right? So before anyone gets on me, Ramsdale was more up and down.
Had more clangers in him, yeah.
He had clangers, and then he had really good saves as well, right?
Yeah, like against Liverpool, he was very good.
Yeah. Exactly. But Arteta just said, you know what, man? We're going for a title now. I didn't expect this to happen, but we're going for a title now after that first season when you finished second. I'm going to go and get a goalie who's steadier than you. I can't have you going on chats with Uncle Righty saying you're getting distracted by pigeons. I need to get a proper goalie in who's just concentrated on the game and gives me at least a 7 out of 10 most times, and sometimes can get to an 8 or whatever. What bad games he drops a bit to a 6, but there's no 4s and 3s and 9s and 10s. I'm going to go and get that guy. And at the beginning with Raya, we were a bit like, because he looked a bit shaky. But even his shaky wasn't Onana shaky. It wasn't Ramsdale shaky. It wasn't other goalies who we think, oh my God, they're a bloody shit show. And that's what you got now. And okay, maybe like Raya is not the exact example you're talking about, because he does have moments where he's hitting eights and stuff like that and doing really well.
He has this season, but like last season,
he's stable. Still, the best thing you can say about Raya is he does what you ask of him. He does he comes and claims crosses. He deals with most things. He doesn't let little goals slip under him. He doesn't fuck up little simple things. 9 times out of 10, he's very stable. And you haven't even had to moan about the goalie that much this season, have you? And the season when you had Ramsdale, you had moments where you go, "Now, Aaron, what you doing?" Blah, 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 and you get angry with him, right? And my whole time with Onana has been like that. The whole time. Well, pretty much the whole time on the pod, because back end of the hay, it was like that too. So we need a steady goalie. I'm not asking for flashy, man. The goalies you just mentioned, I wouldn't really want them, but I get what you mean. I would want someone who can give me that kind of output, and just be stable. And I get it. With some systems, there's more risk. For example, City, Edison's always what's asked of that goalie is always going to, create some dodgy moments. But even still, the thing that's put Edison in these conversations, which I don't believe he should be in, is he makes most of the saves that he should, right? Yeah. He never makes world-class saves. Yeah. That's one thing about Edison. I can't remember him ever doing that. And a few times he's let in some shots that you would hope, a top goalie would save. But very rarely does he make all-time clangers. And obviously he makes
up for it for the fact that he's amazingly good on the ball.
Great on the ball. This is
the thing, right?
Exactly.
Like, you can be amazing on the ball, sure, but the goalkeeping aspect of your job, you cannot be worse than decent.
No, you can't compromise.
I don't care how good you are with your feet. Even Edison, he's decent as a goalkeeper. At times, he's good as a goalkeeper, but he's never Alisson levels as a goalkeeper, right? But then you're balancing that with the fact that he's elite with his feet. And with Raya, I'd say that he's above average when it comes to his keeping and above average when it comes to his feet, right? So he's steady on both sides and can do what he needs to do. But like Onana's probably close to elite with his feet, right? In terms of like his stats and stuff, he's really good with his feet. But he's below average as a keeper. He doesn't look natural as a goalkeeper. And the whole joke's about the fact that he's an outfielder playing in goal. People don't necessarily say that about Edison, right? They just say like he's an elite, or maybe they do a couple of times, but it's a diss to him, and it's not just in the way that he's really good with the ball, but it's like he doesn't look natural as a goalkeeper. Like that's why people say that about him. He genuinely looks like a striker trying to play in goal. Like he doesn't. He's really good with his feet, sure, but he really genuinely doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. And when you watch like the Cycling GK and their podcasts and stuff, and they've got goalkeeper coaches on and whatever else, they're always looking at him thinking, what the is he doing? That is not what I would teach a goalkeeper to do, almost ever. So it's like, maybe it is just his character that he's so strong that he just wants to be in this way and that's how he's going to be. And he's an unorthodox type of keeper. But I'm sorry, in a rebuilding phase of a team, I don't want that. You can come in the future where I've got like a really solid backline in front of it, and then I can afford to take some mistakes, because every now and then he's going to have some worldy ball that he's going to play that leads to a goal, or he's going to have some worldy save, whatever it might be, right? But in a rebuilding phase, when I just need steadiness, I need to build confidence, I need De Ligt, I need Euro, I need Maguire, I need Martinez to feel confident in who's behind them. Andre Onana is not the answer to that.
I'm telling you right now, they don't feel that way. And we're going to wrap up the Onana rant on this. He's Giroud. He's Giroud playing in goal. He's got above average talent for an outfield player in goal. But he's not a goalie. And he's literally, go and watch Giroud's highlights for AC Milan as a goalie. It's shocking that he's actually making saves because he's an outfield player. But that is what Onana is. And there are going to be people out there hating on me and saying whatever, but you need a proper, normal, stable goalie. I don't care who it is, but you need to now look at that as a position to upgrade on. I know we probably can't do it in January, but we got to do it in the summer. I'm not taking more Onana gaffes. I'm telling you, I'm not taking any more of them.
The best way I'm going to characterize him is he's a 5-a-side goalkeeper.
Yeah, which is Giroud.
He's not an 11-a-side goalkeeper. He's the guy that you put in the net that can also play every other position on the pitch, right? And he's decent-ish with his hands, right? He's not an 11-a-side goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You can put him in like FIFA night cages back in the day with bloody Edgar Davids and Ronaldinho as a goalkeeper, sure, but he's not an 11-a-side goalkeeper.
No. Agree. All right, let's wrap up the United part by talking about Amorim. Then he's been getting a bit of a hammering in the press after that Brighton match. He was a bit more bullish in his interviews, both with the broadcaster and then also after in the press conference. And he mentioned he's kind of been Arteta misquoted a bit with the football, right? Because he said this may be the worst United team in history. That's what you guys are going to write. That's basically your headline for you, right? So he's essentially kind of tongue-in-cheek saying it a bit like Arteta did with the football. This British press aren't the brightest of bulbs, are they? They've come out and Carragher isn't either, because he just went straight on attack on Monday Night Football saying it's shocking.
Say that. Yeah.
What are the players going to do? They're going to lose all confidence in him. You don't know what he's trying to do. Give it a break. Give it an absolute break. Statistically, in the Premier League era, we are the worst Man United in history. That's only a 30-year window, by the way. So we're not going back to 1974 when we got relegated. So shut up with all those idiots saying that. He said Premier League, right? So how is that not factually correct? We're in 14th, mate. We've got 26 points after 21 games. Or 22 games or whatever it is. 21 games, I think it is. We have been god-awful. And he's come in and everything he said, he's been too honest with these prats. And he's been trying to act like, if he's honest, they'll keep it a buck with him, like maybe they do in Portugal. I don't know what their press is like. But they're absolutely useless. I saw the press conference ahead of the Rangers game. He's having arguments because he's now again been misquoted live in the press conference where he said our team was nervous, but he says we, right, to talk about the team. The stupid journalist goes out and says to Maguire, how does it feel when your manager admits that he's nervous? What kind of confidence does that give the team? And then Ruben has to step in and say, hey, I didn't say I was nervous. I said we were nervous. The team were nervous. I'm frustrated. There's a difference in that. And so the press are having a field day with this. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think he's throwing anyone under the bus when he says factually that we are the worst team in history. He doesn't say that's going to be the case at the end of the season. He's just talking after we've taken, the 4th or 5th in a row home defeat, or 4 out of 5 or whatever the numbers are. It's the worst that we've ever had. We were mocking City for their run. We're not far off it now, so it's only fair that we also take the heat, right? We've been absolutely poor in the Premier League this season. Amorim's overseen half of that, so he's not scot-free, right? The only bly he gets is that these aren't his players and he's come in with a different philosophy and whatever else, so things are going to be rough. You can expect it. But I don't know, man. I feel like this has been absolutely blown out proportion and the media are starting to turn the screw a bit, as we all kind of expected, right? Arsenal, Man United, for the most part, there's not a media loving in this generation anyway, right? Post-Fergie, post-Wenger, there's not a love for our teams. And they're going in on him. I expect it from Carragher and other half-wits and scousers and stuff like that. They've got their agendas, right? But yeah, the media coming for him for that quote, wow, they all write that quote themselves. I'm sure you've seen it, right? I've seen loads coming from other journalists before Amorim said this. Is this the worst United in history? Is this the worst United have ever been? Is this the worst attack that we've ever had? Is this the worst whatever? They're writing that kind of drivel all the time. And for once, it might actually be true because we're sitting in bloody 14th, the worst we've ever been sitting after this amount of games. The manager admits it, and suddenly they're acting like he said something shocking or crazy. I don't get it, man. Obviously, these days, when you've said it before with the whole football thing that Arteta happened, we all know our media are disgraceful. They're fishing for headlines at every chance, and they've got their agendas. But every once in a while, very frequently, unfortunately, something takes my breath away, and this has taken it away because I can't believe this has been made a thing. Like, it's literally what everyone else says. But what do you think? Do you think Amorim's starting to get the screw turned on him by the media, or do you think he genuinely made a mistake by saying that?
I don't know. I kind of sit maybe in the middle because I think I can almost never bring myself to say that telling the truth is a mistake. Because I'm going to be honest with you, he's not wrong. You are the worst Man United in Premier League history. right? I think that's got to be obvious at this point, right? Like there was even parts where like under Ten Hag where you weren't doing so bad, where I looked at you and thought, yes, this is the worst I've ever seen you, right? Like, and I'm thinking back to like Ranić days as well, where you were poor. Like this is the worst I've ever seen you in terms of the style of football you play and all these other things. So I don't think in my opinion, I don't think anyone can ever be wrong for telling the truth. But then you look at it as if like, okay, from a media perspective, from a manager perspective, how do you survive in this league? And I don't really know what the answer is yet. I think it's a combination of telling the truth when it can't hurt you and defending your players or basically just giving them blank answers, right? Kind of like what we've said before with Pep, what I've said about him, where he just waffles absolute shit, like inaudible, like you literally cannot understand what he's trying to say. That's the only way to do it with these lot, is to just like babble them into confusion when they ask you a difficult question that you know is probably a gotcha moment, right? And then other times when their guard is down, you can probably tell the truth and get away with it, right? So from that point of view, from like a sleazy, greasy point of view, like I kind of feel like, yeah, maybe that was a bit of a mistake to say. But I also think like Sorrell has said mean things about you lot before when you've really pissed him off as like a wake-up call. Like, you lot need to pull your fucking fingers out. We are absolutely terrible, right? And he said it in a really angry, he didn't even need to say that many words and you'd get what he was trying to say about the team. And no one would come out afterwards and say, oh, Fergie's doing too much, he's hurting the feelings of his players. Maybe it's just because it's a different time, and now we're so soft about how we expect players to react to managers and this, that, and the other. But I mean, there have been other managers that have come out before and said, this is not good enough, this is not acceptable, this is terrible. So I'm kind of sitting on the fence of like how I judge this. Like, if I were him, would I have said that? Probably not. But do I respect him for saying it because it's true? I do. The problem that you've got is the media. I mean, the media, when we talk about the media, by the way, I'm including broadcasters in that, right? Like, because
I'm talking prime time with them as well.
Yeah, like, I mean, because they're the ones that give Carragher a platform. They're the ones that give this stupid social media don a platform to say that we're attacking, we can't attack through the middle and all this other stuff. So they're just as bad as all of these publications. But, from a point of view of Amorim, like, it all depends on whether you think that can change. Do you think media can become ethically better than they are right now? If your answer is yes, you think it is possible, then yeah, I think he probably didn't make a mistake, and that's good. But I think if you just accept the fact that our media are slimy weasels, then maybe it was a mistake to say that, because they're jumping on that. And it's the same way I went at Arteta. Mate, just be a bit smarter than that, would you? Just don't talk about the ball. It's going to be on the back page of the Sun or whatever it is tomorrow. Just leave that out. Just keep that to yourself. And also, when these rumors are coming out that he apparently punched up televisions, like just before he went into that conference, and you can see like a bit of blood on his knuckles and whatever else, like maybe that was enough, mate. Maybe it was enough to go in there and punch up a couple of tellies. Maybe you didn't need to come out and also say that they were the worst team in history. But I can't fault him. He's not wrong. You are the worst Premier League Man United we've seen.
No, I get it, man. And I feel like there's certain things that are bigger, that are more cringy than other. I think the football thing, Arteta got clipped out of context. But, it makes for a cringy kind of line. For this one, they're clipping him up in a similar way. It's not necessarily cringy, but they're trying to use it against him, right? Against his players.
Trying to use it to get the players to go against him. Yeah.
You know what, man? Maybe that's the reason why I kind of get what you're saying, and I could also understand if someone didn't say it. But at the same time, I'm loving it. I'm loving that he said that. I'm loving that he's punching up TVs and making certain pussy holes in our team cry. I'm loving it. We need that. We are soft. We haven't got the characters, both mentally or physically, to hold that badge. And if he's going to come in, and he's very chill. He's like the EQ is high on the scale for Amorim. He's proven that even in the short space at United and definitely at Sporting. I'm backing that guy over a lot of the players that we have. So I love this because I feel. Do
you also kind of feel like it's what fans have been wanting to tell your players for the longest anyway? So he kind of feels like a voice for you lot now. Yeah.
He is. He's the vessel, and I will also say this applies in normal life. When you try to be logical, when you try to be empathetic, when you try to display a lot of the characteristics Amorim has to offer, and has shown that he's got. People take you for a P word again. I'm not going to drop it again because I don't want to make your edit it. They take you for a mug, and then there's a moment where you got to lose your rag and remind them that you're about it. And I feel like that moment after the game, he reminded them that he's about it. Because there's been lots of other poor performances where we've been shocking. He's come out and said, nice. And people have pressed him, and you can see he's livid, he's seething. But he said, "This is the wrong moment. I'm too emotional right now. I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to analyze the next day." And I like that. That's good because I feel like you can't lose your rag all the time. But every now and again, you got to flip and smash some tellies, make some people cry, and get the expense book out for the Glazers and for Ineos to fix them. Because that's not acceptable. You can't do that. And so that's the reason why maybe, and obviously it's a different thing. We're comparing apples and oranges with the Arteta and other managers. Klopp used to do it all the time. Pep used to do it. I know what you're saying about Pep, but Pep's being rattled every bloody week now that he's losing a bit, right? True. We've seen this cool, calm Pep go out the window. He's trying to fight Scousers on the street. He's losing his mind. He's self-harming, he's doing all kinds of stuff, right? Yeah. Exactly. So, it's everyone's not easy to lose games. Yeah, it's not easy to lose, right? Amorim's pointed this out. He was a winner at Sporting. And they weren't Benfica or Porto, but he was out there smacking them up a lot of the time. And so he's not used to all of this losing to Brighton and losing to Forest and losing to everyone under the sun.
The table, yeah.
He's not used to this, mate. So I tell you what, it was bound to happen. And I feel like Amorim, the only thing that is a positive for him to come out of this media storm is he's learned a bit more about our media firsthand now. They've been kind of nice to him, but United fans and Arsenal fans and other fans who've had this experience can see through it a bit, could see it was coming, and now he's seen it firsthand. They're going to try and come for him, and I like that he corrected the guy, the Don, in the press conference straight away. He didn't let it run. Straight away he corrected him, and you need that from your manager. So I'm fine with it. The proof will be in the pudding. I'm not giving him a complete, he's not going to have impunity to get us, 15th or 16th or 17th or whatever. He needs to turn it around. But when people are trying to take him for an idiot like they are, we're going to back him. But anyway, that's enough United. We're not good enough to justify this one.